LaSalle community, my name is Dannt Rovi, a senior at LaSalle College High School. Alongside me here today, Brother Gerry Molyneaux. Gerry, thank you so much for joining me here on this interview.
Pleasure to be here, Danny. Looking forward to it. Nice to be back at LaSalle. I was on the board here for 6 years, and I helped Mr. Johnson connect to his job here. I've always had a place in my heart for LaSalle High School.
Absolutely.
It's nice to be back.
You're definitely revered here as well. So Brother Gerry, just to backtrack really quick, where does your story begin? Because you have been a brother in many different places around the world, but even before you started teaching at 24 years old of age at LaSalle High School in Cumberland, Maryland, where does your story begin?
Well, it began at West Catholic High School. I was a student there, and I got to admire the brothers. And it began when I was about 10 years old. My older brother said, I got to go into West and play intramural basketball. And I was a goofy little 10-year-old. So he takes me in, and he's playing basketball, and it's halftime. And this brother comes and sits down, and he takes me seriously. I'm 10 years old, he's having me serious, and I'm saying dumb things like, oh, me and Eddie Olson smoked a cigarette. Well, there's a thrill. But he took me seriously. And when I got to the West Catholic, the brothers paid attention, you know what I mean? So that's when I got to like and admire them. They had a good sense of humor, but no nonsense in the classroom. So I thought, these guys are pretty good. So that's what sparked my interest in joining the brothers. And I went to LaSalle College at the time. My last year, I did my practice teaching at LaSalle High School. And one of the people I was supposed to watch teach got sick. So I had to step in and start teaching these guys for real. I'm an accountant. So it's kind of a good start, good place to start. I went to Cumberland, Maryland, and I was very disappointed because I had been at a school that was just opening a new school, and they said, no, you're going to go to Cumberland, Maryland, teach English, Latin, religion, blah, blah, blah. I thought this is horrible, but when I got there, I really got to like it. It's a small school, only 200 boys, and you had to teach religion and Spanish and Latin and English. You had to moderate the newspaper. You had to coach the baseball team. You had to You had to do everything. So it was a pretty good proving ground for this future brother.
And would you say that experience helped make you the brother you are today?
Oh, absolutely, no doubt about it. Because it really, I was reading the other day. Every day, do something that you're afraid of. And all of a sudden it said, teach Latin, second year Latin. I knew a little Latin. I got away with that. They coached the baseball team. I never played that much baseball. You do things, you just get there and do stuff. And that, in my life, it keeps happening again and again and again. Somebody's got to do it, so you do it.
Absolutely. So at LaSalle High School in Cumberland, Maryland, you were revered as an inspirational teacher and a beacon of your community, with an entirely different identity, I hear, in Brother Richard. So
that's right.
Here's what past students have said about your teaching. The best teacher I ever had, my most influential teacher, the reason I was able to communicate as a professional. So what does it mean to have such a lasting impact on the countless individuals that you taught at LaSalle High?
Well, it's, you read stuff like that and you can hardly believe it for starters. But at the same time, I'm really so proud of the accomplishments of the students I've taught. And, 50 years later, I'm still in touch with them. And not just proud because they're professionally successful, but personally, they turned out to be pretty good people,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So adding on from that, describe the power of communication and how you think that excels the mission of Lasallian communities around the world.
Whoa, that's a heavyweight question you got there, Danny. Let me put it this way. What is the first thing that an employer wants when he looks at a candidate? Experience. What's the second thing? Skills at communicating. They're invaluable. You're not going to run a good company without good communicators. You're not going to run anything without strong communication skills, whether in media, or interpersonal, or journalism. All of that stuff is based on it really goes back to Aristotle, and logic and things like that. So yeah, it's always been the substratum of all the professions. Lawyers tell me they love to come back and talk to classes because they love to tell stories. That's communication.
Exactly. Now, we talked a little bit about your time at LaSalle High School. How about the next steps in your journey after that?
Oh, okay. Get this. I went to a school out in Pittsburgh called South Oaks Catholic, and they said, guess what? I said, what? They said, you're going to be the producer for our TV station. I said, okay. So this is again what I mean by stretching. But because I went to Cumberland, Maryland, uh, I became the moderator of the newspaper. Because I was moderator of the newspaper, Wall Street Journal gave me a fellowship to study at the University of Notre Dame, journalism. So they were hoping to improve journalism. And then I stayed there and got a master's degree in English. Then the director of that program, the original journalism said, "Why don't you, look, you're done your MA, stay for an extra summer, take any course you want." I took film, and that got me kind of hooked. So when I got to South Oaks Catholic, somehow I learned how to produce a TV show, and then the summer after that exposure, I went out to Northwestern and got a summer course in TV production. So one thing built on another. And then after I left South Oaks Catholic, I went to University of Wisconsin, thinking I would get a PhD in English. But some woman friend of mine said, I got to go interview this communication teacher. Come on with me. So I went. And then I began asking more questions and see, because I really got hooked on it. I could see he was saying you can study language, you can study media, you can study film, you can study all of this stuff in communication. I thought, that's what I want. And that's what I got. Then I wound that house. This is going to seem silly because maybe you don't even know this guy. I was looking around at the end of that. You had to write a book called a dissertation. And I said, well, so they said there's a film upstairs. It's called City Lights by a guy by the name of Charlie Chaplin. So that people couldn't believe that I was writing a book about this guy who's the most famous comedian of ever in the world. You know him?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, that's terrific. I'm delighted.
Yeah. So it sounds like you kind of got the bug for communications, I guess, with your experience in education. How did you use that in your efforts at LaSalle University?
Oh, that's another good question. The funny thing is, I was thinking of this coming over. A career is sort of like skiing. You're in control, sort of, but you're always adapting. You're always adapting to the slope, to the moguls and things like that. And so when I got to LaSalle, I thought, all right, I'll teach movies. And then the student said, can you do anything else besides movies? I said, how about TV production? Do that. How about mass media? Do that. And all of a sudden, we had a minor, then we had a major, then we had a department of 400 students. And then people said, let's do graduate school. We did graduate school. And then somebody said, you got to take your graduate program to Prague in the Czech Republic, and you got to take it to Athens in Greece. So we went there. Can you imagine this? Amazing. All the students there had to speak English. But I thought when we got to Prague, they'd be all Czechs. They were from all over the world. They were from Portugal and get this. One of the students was from Iran. No kidding, from Iran, taking this degree program from a Catholic university. Iran didn't believe it. He didn't believe it. They made us get approval from the state of Pennsylvania. But get this too. So we did Prague, and I'd go over there 20 times, and went to Athens, and there was a kid in Athens in the program. He was from Russia. I said, why didn't you go to Prague? It's closer. He said, they hate us. And they do, because the Russians occupied the Czech Republic. So even Czechs that know Russian, they won't speak it to Russians.
Yeah.
and it won't speak German to Germans either, because they were occupied by both. So that's exciting. I mean, who can you imagine? 18-year-old thinking someday I'll be flying on my way to Prague, and then I'll stop off at Athens, then I'll come home. Wow. I mean, that's amazing.
What a journey. Absolutely. Now, would you say that type of global learning is something that's a part of the vocation of the Brotherhood?
Well, yeah, I think so, and I think the new, for instance, both Brother Bob Schaefer, who's the head of the brothers in this area, are big believers in the international scene. They've been there. The president at Lasalle University, he's another big believer in the exchange programs and things like that. But I thought for our communication faculty, going over there was a fantastic experience. They had to adapt to these people that barely knew Americans, but they all wanted to get an American degree, and wanted to do it the American way. Like in some countries, you take a course, you take an exam at the end. That's it. It all comes down to that one exam. We had different ways for people, like here, like you're doing different things to get your grade.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, what would you say today, in the modern day, is the importance of continuing to further in education and communications, and how have you continued to do that at LaSalle?
Well, officially I'm retired, but I'm not. I'm, I still run the internship program, and we had interns. Again, we had a couple of them down at the Disney program, which is fantastic. Wonderful. We have them with the Eagles video department. We have them with all kinds of different places. So that's fun because I get to see the students their junior and senior year when they're ready to apply what they've learned. So that's a good experience. How else do I keep busy? I try to moderate a fraternity that Bob is familiar with, and that keeps me busy, especially because we raise money for LaSalle Academy. We have a 5K race in the fall, so we build out of that. We'll have auctions, we'll have stuff, Super Bowl pools. So we're going to raise about $35,000 for LaSalle Academy. Some of that, by the way, comes from Lou Clark. He helps us a little bit on that.
That's awesome.
So yeah, it is awesome. I also usually am the moderator of the ice hockey club, but we don't have enough players this year, so we'll be back next year, I think.
Yeah, gotta get out on the rink.
So that keeps me. Retired is a misnomer, I think.
Yeah, you're very still active in your community, which I think is great. Another question along those lines: how do you think continuing to inspire all these next generation Lasallians will benefit the Lasallian community as a whole and the communications industry as a whole as well?
How do I think? I'm not quite sure.
So, at least for the days to come, for the years to come, these next generation of Lasallian students that you continue to influence, how do you think that will benefit the Lasallian mission as well as the communications industry as a whole?
Well, yeah, if they're trained in telling the story, that's so important. Telling the story on the air, telling the story in public relations, telling the story just between two people. That's a skill that is universally applicable. So wherever they go, that skill is going to benefit them and benefit the people that they are working with and trying to help.
How would you describe the evolution of your time in the Brotherhood?
Well, back in those ancient days, everything was very regulated. At 5 o'clock, you'll get up. At 5:30, you'll pray. At 6 o'clock, you'll go to mass. At 8 o'clock, you'll be in school. At 3:30, you'll be out of school. Then at 5 o'clock, you'll have spiritual reading. It was all very, very regulated. See, in those old days, also there was supposed to be a distance between the brother and the rest of the world. So the brother had to take a new name. Like I was Brother Richard. Well, here comes Vatican II, and they say the window is open. There's a breath of fresh air, and there's a lot of say, look, you want to be a brother, work it out. We're not going to tell you to be here and here and here and here all the time. You work that out. Let me give you an example, a pretty radical one at the time. I said, I want to go out to Wisconsin and study. And they said, okay. So for 3 years, I was off on my own, but, you know, you adapt. You know that what you're learning is going to help yourself, it's going to help the university, or wherever. So I think that was one of the big changes of putting more of the onus of being a brother on a brother rather than regimentation. So I think that's been a refreshing change, a more mature way of living.
Absolutely. And would you say that breath of fresh air allowed you to really experience growth in your brotherhood?
I think so, yeah. I think growth, not just in yourself, but in the brothers around you. That was a maturing impact, yeah.
What would you say is the total educational benefit that can be derived from that as a whole for the entirety of the brotherhood?
I'm going to spin a little bit here, Danny. You know, I've been thinking about this lately. And in fact, a friend of mine then sent me a poster that he created. And the poster says, if the only prayer you say is thanks, that's enough. And when you get to the situation, because the beginning of love is gratitude. You know, you're going to run into somebody and you're going to say, you be like her. You know, that's gratitude. And the next thing you know, that grows into love. And I think that's where my heart is these days. It's just, 70 years in the brothers. Wow, I ought to be grateful. And I am.
Absolutely. There's a lot to be grateful for, and
Absolutely.
It seems like you have such an amazing, I guess, experience and tenure in the brotherhood.
I have, and wouldn't trade it for anything.
Absolutely. Brother Gerry, thank you so much for sharing your story today. It was a pleasure having you on for this interview.
Danny, thank you so much for having me. Pleasure.
A pleasure, as always.